Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, voices from the Middle East weigh in on Donald Trump's victory. And striking the enemy hard, the IDF continues to destroy Hezbollah strongholds in Lebanon. And rescue flights bring Israelis back from Amsterdam amid growing anti-Semitism in Europe. Plus, the power of covenant. A new film explores the modern relevance of the promises made to Abraham and his descendants. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. After a number of phone conversations, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reports that he and President-elect Donald Trump see eye to eye on Iran. Meanwhile, the United States has revealed that Iran pursued an assassination plot against Trump. Netanyahu says he and President Trump are on the same page about the threat Iran poses to the world.
These were very good and important conversations, talks designed to further tighten the strong alliance between Israel and the USA. We see eye to eye on the Iranian threat and all its components and the danger posed by it.
In the meantime, Iran's supreme leader and foreign ministry are hinting they may be trying to race toward nuclear weapons.
Our official stance in rejecting weapons of mass destruction and the peaceful nature of our nuclear program is absolutely clear. Meanwhile, as emphasized in the Supreme Leader's recent speech, we will get equipped with whatever is necessary to defend Iran.
The Foreign Ministry spokesman also denied Iranian plans to assassinate President Trump. The U.S. says it discovered just such a plot. Despite the advances the IDF is making in southern Lebanon, Ayatollah Khamenei insists Iran's proxy Hezbollah will prevail. The IDF continues to destroy Hezbollah infrastructure throughout southern Lebanon. They discovered a large complex buried underneath this cemetery and are filling it up with concrete. Meanwhile, Israel returned nearly 2,000 of its citizens from Amsterdam on emergency flights after Thursday night's organized brutal assault on Jews by radical Muslims.
We all saw what happened, shameful. This is the world we live in now, unfortunately. Our fans were very intimidated when they went through the worst there. Unfortunately, they came to see soccer, and that's what happened.
Dutch leaders condemned the attacks, and Israel's new foreign minister, Gideon Saar, flew to Amsterdam and warned European leaders these attacks cannot be tolerated.
Radical Islam is dangerous, not only in the Middle East, not only to Israel. It is dangerous to Western society. If you compromise with this mob that made yesterday these barbaric attacks in the streets of Amsterdam, finally you cannot recognize the society and the country you are living. And this is the real danger today.
Netanyahu drew a connection between the recent ruling of the International Court of Justice and the attacks.
In both cases, it's a dangerous anti-Semitism that aims to make the Jews and their country helpless.
Netanyahu also appointed U.S.-born Dr. Yakil Leiter as Israel's new ambassador to the United States. Dr. Leiter's son was one of the first IDF soldiers to fall in combat in Gaza last November, and soon after, he appeared on the 700 Club. Much of the world is still reeling from the riot following an Amsterdam soccer match where Muslims attacked thousands of Israelis. After returning from the Netherlands, Israel's new foreign minister, Gideon Saar, told journalists his country is battling a level of anti-Semitism not experienced since World War II. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
This wave of anti-Semitism we see right now is focused on, I call it new anti-Semitism, focused on the denial of the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state, focused on the denial of the right of Israel to self-defense.
Special evacuation flights brought 2,000 Israelis home over the weekend after the Amsterdam attacks. Part of that is due to Jews being denied rights like self-defense, which the UN grants to all nations.
When we are talking about the country that is most attacked in the world, most threatened in the world, with other UN state members like Iran speaking publicly and deliberately about eliminating it. But this country is attacked with an effort to deny its right to self-defense.
Sa'ar is calling on all nations to stand up and make Jewish communities secure, much like Germany did a year ago when it criminalized the Palestinian chant, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free."
Palestine will be free. To take care of incitement against Jews and against the state of Israel as the only Jewish state in the world, and to combat seriously the phenomenon of new anti-Semitism with all its expressions.
Following meetings with leaders in the Netherlands, Sa'ar believes they understand the challenge.
We discussed different ideas, how to deal with it, what to do, and I'm sure that will take place in European level.
As for the war in Lebanon, Sa'ar says there's been progress on a ceasefire agreement, which must include Hezbollah's total disarmament with no ability to regain strength.
Even if we will reach to an agreement, the most important thing will be not the words in an agreement with Lebanon, but the enforcement and the willingness and the decisiveness.
He adds, while bringing security to Israel, it would also benefit the Lebanese people.
We will assure that Hezbollah will not be a threat to Israel. But the international community can assure the future of Lebanon as a free country, a sovereign country, not enforced to be an Iranian proxy, which I'm sure that the majority of the citizens of Lebanon don't want to be.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, winds of change, response from the Middle East to Donald Trump's victory in the U.S. elections. From Tehran to Tel Aviv to Gaza, people in the Middle East are speaking out about President-elect Trump's victory. Here are some of the reactions. Some journalists from Arab Gulf nations hailed Trump's election as a victory for the moderate axis in the Middle East. One wrote, President Donald Trump return to the White House is a nightmare for the terrorist militias and a new hope for stability in the Middle East. This Saudi journalist said, Trump's victory is a victory for Israel in its war against terrorism. Trump has previously shown strong support for Israel, and he will continue this support, which could give Israel more freedom in its fight against Hezbollah's terrorism. Hezbollah leader Sheikh Naim Qassam, hiding in Tehran, remained defiant.
We do not expect the end of aggression to be based on a political movement, and we will not beg for the aggression to stop. We will make the enemy demand an end to the aggression.
Iran's currency, the rial, fell to an all-time low after the election, leaving some Iranians pessimistic about their future.
100% Trump will intensify the sanctions. Things that are not in our favor will be worse. Our economy and social situation will surely get worse.
In Israel, many believe Trump's presidency will mean more reliable support from the U.S.
It's a victory for all the American people, for all the Israeli people, and it's a victory that erases every word of anti-Semitism in the world. Good luck to him, all the best. We love him. Well done to him.
Basically, the governments are considered to be as business, and he would be someone that could take care of business, so to speak, as opposed to someone of Kamala Harris.
In Gaza, some hope Trump will end their suffering.
I hope to find that he's a man at peace and finds a solution for us. Enough blood. You see how the streets have become. There's no house without a martyr, a wounded person, or a disaster in it.
Meanwhile, some Israelis are protesting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to fire Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. In his farewell address to IDF troops, Gallant praised their unprecedented military achievements.
We changed the balance of power in the Middle East, from Gaza to Tehran, from Hudaydah in Yemen to Dahaya in Beirut. In all these places, things happened that had never happened before, and we set our enemies back decades.
The day after the election, Netanyahu spoke with President-elect Trump about Israeli security and the threat Iran poses to both their countries. Circling back to the anti-Semitic attacks in the Netherlands, violence against Jews has been on the rise across Western Europe in recent years. It's causing Jews to ask if they still have a future there. Dale Hurd has the story.
Outside the Brussels Stock Exchange on the one-year anniversary of the October 7th massacre, pro-Hamas demonstrators joined in a public prayer for Allah to burn the Jews. Pro-Hamas, anti-Israel demonstrations have been held daily in Brussels since the massacre. Some have included the leaders of Belgium's major left-wing parties. Even though the European Union has designated Hamas a terrorist organization, Hamas-affiliated groups are operating in several countries. Joel Rubenfeld, president of the Belgian League Against Anti-Semitism, says Brussels today feels like Gaza, and Jews in Belgium and across Western Europe are asking if it's time to leave.
It's just crazy. It's a tsunami. It's a tsunami of anti-Semitism, which is spreading all over the Western world, and it's a failure of the democracy, it's a failure for Belgium.
Both France and Germany report the number of anti-Semitic crimes has doubled this year compared to last year. In Britain, the number of anti-Semitic incidents has more than doubled, and in this nation that has been a safe haven for Jews, some have raised the specter of 1930s Germany. Comparisons to Nazi Germany are overused, but there are some disturbing parallels in today's Britain for Jews. Because of threats, some Jewish organizations now have secret addresses. Virtually all need security. Gideon Falter heads Britain's campaign against anti-Semitism.
We are seeing the radicalization of society. We are seeing young people who believe that they are doing a righteous thing by discriminating. We see graffiti. We're hearing from Holocaust survivors who say, you've got to be really careful about this stuff. This is the thin end of the wedge.
British journalist David Collier, a Jew, is very pessimistic because of how the influx of Muslim immigrants has changed perceptions of Israel and Jews in Britain.
It's completely different. It's a different country with a different demographic, a different outlook. Everything about it is different.
In Belgium, Rubenfeld says it feels as if Jews live in a kind of parallel world where Israel, Jews, and democracy are evil and Hamas is good.
It's what I call the anti-Semite metaverse, where black is white, where wrong is right, an inversion of values, an inversion of truth.
And Collier is afraid that Europe may never again be a safe place for Jews.
I see Europe as lost, and I just don't see a way back.
Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
Israel, the U.S., and Iraq recently participated in the rescue of an ISIS captive held by a Hamas terrorist in the Gaza Strip. ISIS has abducted some 6,000 women and children, selling many into sex slavery. The recent deliverance was made possible by a Jewish businessman who's been facilitating the rescue of Yazidi and Christian women for a decade.
Dubbed the Jewish Oskar Schindler, Moroccan-born Steve Maman is a Jewish-Canadian businessman. For 10 years, he's been helping rescue Yazidi and Christian women kidnapped by ISIS in Iraq.
Being that I was born Jewish, the Holocaust is a subject that is very close to our nation. The help that we've received from the nations, from the people that came to help us, for instance, Oskar Schindler, who's rescued 1,000 Jews, which today amount to about 12,000 descendants.
Maman's most recent coordinated rescue was a 21-year-old Yazidi woman held in war-torn Gaza. Kidnapped in Iraq in August 2014 at age 11, Fauzia Amin Sido suffered violence and was forced to marry a militant at age 15. She had 2 children and was eventually moved to Gaza and held by her master's family after he was killed. In order to leave Gaza, Sido had to leave her little ones behind. She was taken first to the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, then Jordan, and then Iraq, where she was reunited with her family in Mount Sinjar on October 1st. We spoke with Maman recently. He preferred not to talk too much about the rescue itself, that he called one of the most difficult he and his team had carried out. He weighed in on the current situation and says he's still in touch with Sido.
Yes, we've been in contact every day. Her children are on her mind very, very much. One has to expect that. She had to abandon her 2 children there. They were children that were from a Palestinian Hamas Muslim family. And there was no way that that family were going to let those children go. It's a great thing that we succeeded at negotiating the family letting her go. That was a long ordeal. They wanted $50,000 at the beginning. Then they changed their minds. They didn't want her to leave anymore. And after a certain time, we re-entered conversations and we succeeded to let her leave that house. Yeah.
Just tell me, Israel has 101 hostages in Hamas captivity in Gaza. Do you have any kind of suggestion or ideas for Israel, how they can get them out?
I think that Israel is one of the best intelligence and army in the world. It has a moral compass set in a direction that no other country, no other army in the world has. They are doing they're doing the proper procedure in order to get those hostages liberated. Annihilating Hamas is a must in this war. They succeeded at getting back over 100 hostages so far, which is an incredible feat, considering that Hamas is willing to sacrifice itself for this mission. So we have to trust the IDF. We have to trust the Israeli government. We have to trust the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for what he is doing. I don't think there is a better solution on the table than what they are currently doing right now.
How can the world actually facilitate getting maybe Yazidi women back that are still in captivity, or the hostages from Israel? What can the world's response be?
I believe that during the Holocaust, the world knew of the plight of the Jewish people, and they haven't acted from 1939 to 1945. The same thing has happened with Yazidis. Not many countries have mobilized. There's difficulty to get them out of the camps right now in Kurdistan. After 10 years, they're still living in tents. They have been abandoned by the world. There are very few who have recognized the genocide of the Yazidis, and this says a lot. As far as Israel, I believe that if looking at the current media around the world, I'm not sure that the world wants to see the Israeli hostages freed or released. I think that there are many who are enjoying this moment, who see it as a punishment for the state, for Jews, for the state of Israel, and they do not see that there's a justification for our army, the IDF, being in Gaza looking for those hostages. There are complaints when hostages are rescued that our actions were too harsh. To rescue 4 Israelis, we had to kill 100 Hamas. The medias around the world were very, very unhappy with what Israel did. And that tells us how much the moral compass has completely veered off course.
The conflict in Israel today is often linked to the belief that the Bible serves as the Israelis' claim to the land, based on God's covenant with Abraham, Moses, and the Israelites. Filmmaker Tim Mahoney investigates this in his new film, The Israel Dilemma. Take a look. Tim Mahoney, great to be with you again. We've covered many of your films throughout the years. I can't think of a more timely one than this right now, The Israel Dilemma. Tell us about it and why you made it now.
Well, back in 2007, I was able to get some interviews with Benjamin Netanyahu and Shimon Peres, and they were remarkable interviews, and I actually believe they were held for this time. And when the attack happened last year, I knew that we had to make a film about God's covenant with the nation of Israel. So this film came about very quickly, and it's speaking about this covenant and helps a lot of people to understand where we are today.
Yeah, why do you think it's so timely right now with all the anti-Semitism protests literally going global?
I think that what we're dealing with is something that's not natural. I mean, when you think about this activity, so what other word would you use for it? I think it would be supernatural. I think there's a supernatural battle that's going on, and this film is looking at, well, how in the world did this nation of Israel come into being? And so this film starts in the book of Genesis, and Moses writes and tells us the story of creation. He tells us the story of rebellion and the fall and the flood. flood, Noah's Ark, and the Tower of Babel, and eventually we come to a man by the name of Abraham. And Abraham follows God, and God is going to make a nation out of this. In fact, many nations come from Abraham, but one in particular is the nation of Israel. And that is the story that we're telling. And I think this film, no one has ever been able to contextualize the entire events from Genesis all the way up through the kingdom of David and through to the fall of the first temple, as it were, the destruction of that. And that's what this film is doing, is giving us a picture, an understanding. It's called The Israel Dilemma, Ancient Prophecies, and we're going to look at those.
Yeah. When people come to see this movie, what do you want them to take away?
I think I want them to be to have an understanding of what's going on from a biblical standpoint. Many people today just spend their time in the Gospels, but they don't know the Old Testament very well, and they don't know how we got here. And this film will help to give a basis for people's understanding of the nation of Israel.
Yeah, do you think this will give people an understanding when they see the news, when they see even just recently, anti-Semitic attacks there in Amsterdam? People are calling from the river to the sea. Do you think that gives some people a biblical background for what is really this battle going on in the streets, on social media, and in an international forum?
Well, the reason I use the name Israel Dilemma is that in many cases, Israel has a dilemma, because of this anti-Semitism worldwide. But where does that dilemma come from? And it comes from, I think, a spiritual connection to the land. But number two, the world has a dilemma as well. We all have a question as to, how should we understand these people? And thirdly, I think there's a dilemma understanding there's a spiritual connection, that there's a biblical connection. And a lot of Jewish people have come back to the land of Israel, but I don't know that they've come back to the God of Israel. And so there's all sorts of dilemmas going on here.
Yeah, I can see that. And how can people see this film if they want to reach it? I understand it's a Fathom event in many theaters around the country.
Well, it's actually an iconic event. It's going to be, but it's similar. It's an event. It's only in the cinema for 3 days, November 13th, 14th, and 17th. And they can go to patternsofevidence.com. That's patternsofevidence.com. They can watch a trailer and get tickets there. And they should get their tickets early. It's very important. You buy your tickets now online if you can. And bring a group. Bring your Sunday school class, your Bible study group, or bring a friend who doesn't really know about the Bible. This would be a great place to talk with them about this.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Tim? You want people to know about the film?
Well, I think this film is going to be encouraging to people. There are times in this film when we were going to show very inspirational times when, if you're facing a difficult situation in your own life, we can do as King Hezekiah. We can call out to the Lord. And this film is going to, I brought the prophets in Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah back to life, and King Hezekiah. Nebuchadnezzar's in this movie, and Sennacherib, these different historical biblical characters, and you're going to see them like you've never seen them before.
Well, a cast of characters right out of the Bible. And I would remind people as well, Tim, you've done so amazing movies about Exodus, so they can see them, I'm sure, on patternsofevidence.com as well.
That's correct.
Thanks, Tim. God bless.
God bless you.
Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and you can also access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. And don't forget to sign up for our email blasts so you can receive information on breaking news. And please keep praying for Israel, for the peace of Jerusalem, for the IDF soldiers and all those caught in harm's way, and for the hostages in Gaza to come home. I'm Chris Mitchell. For all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau, we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.